on June 14th in 2006, a few years after migrating from Jamaica, I was living in Vancouver and it was my father's birthday. So I called him on the 14th to wish him happy birthday, and my mom answered the phone. And after about 2 minutes of chatting, I said, "Mom, can you just get Dad and put him on the phone? I need to wish him happy birthday and talk to him for a bit." She said, "Sure, but let me just tell you this, Tani. I have to tell you this." And I said to her, "Mom, I have a 15-minute phone card and I want to spend at least 13 of those minutes talking to him. I'll talk to you another time." And she said, "Oh, this won't be long, Tani. I just have to tell you this." And I said to her, "Mom, not now. I really have to talk to Dad, and I think we only have about 13 or 12 minutes left right now." And she said, "Oh, Tani, it won't be long. I just need to tell you this." And again I said, "Mom, I'll call back on Father's Day. You know I always call back on Father's Day." And she said, "Okay, I guess it can wait. I'll tell you then." And so my dad came on the phone, we had a quick chat, and at the end of the conversation, I said to him, "I'll call back on Father's Day as usual," because his birthday and Father's Day were always very near. That was a Wednesday when I spoke to my mom and dad, and on the Saturday, only 3 days after, my sister called to let me know that my mom had had a stroke and the doctors had said we needed to make a decision as a family because she would need life support if she survived the coma. And I remember when she told me, I found myself saying, no, it cannot be. It can't be that my last words to my mother were, "I'll talk to you on Father's Day." So I kept saying, no, she can't, no, that cannot be. You know, I felt my skin, I remember feeling my skin just tingling. I remember my heart just started to race. And I remember that I felt like my stomach was about to drop out. And I kept thinking, no. Mommy, please. No. That can't be it. That cannot be how I remember you. But unfortunately, that was my last conversation with my mom. That was a memory that I had to live with. And it took me about 14 years to finally share that story, and I did in this video. And when I did, I was amazed at the number of people who reached out to me, and so many people told me about their stories of loss also, and in many cases, loss and additional grief simply because they had not made it right with the person before it was too late. And I know that there may be some people listening to me now, and that may be your situation also. You may have had a family member that you feel you grew apart from, and you didn't talk to them for days, and then it became weeks, and then it became months, and then it became years. And then when they were maybe terminally ill, you didn't know how to bridge that gap and try to make peace with them before they died. Or you may have had a falling out with a friend, and somehow that person ended up maybe sick or dead, and you live with the guilt of not having had a chance to make it right before they passed. Or maybe you just had unfinished business and it remained unfinished. Or maybe You've had a friend that you've not spoken to for years. And when you look back, you think, whatever really happened? Well, since that day, I've done quite a lot of research on regret and shame. And so today I want to talk to you about why it is that we need to embrace the people in our lives and to live each day like it is our loved ones' last days. Now, the first reason that we have to cherish our loved ones and live each day like it's the last is because of the uncertainty of life. And when I talk about the uncertainty of life, I think about my son's best friend's father, who I spoke about in this video. I told the story in this video because my son's best friend's father went with his 5 friends to Mount Harvey in West Vancouver. They went skiing, as they did regularly. But this particular time, one of them was tired, so he hung back to take a breath. And he watched his 5 friends step on a cornice, which is really just an overhang when you have that buildup of snow and ice. And he watched them plummet 500 meters to their death. And that's why I say uncertainty of life. Because when my son's friend's father left home that day, he told them goodbye as usual. But this time he did not return home. The cops were the ones who returned at the end of the night to say they were trying to find the body. And I remember when my son told me, it just reminded me that life is so uncertain. And that's one reason we have to live every day like it's our loved ones' last days. Now, apart from the uncertainty of life, the second reason that we need to live each day like it's our loved ones' last days is because when we don't and they pass, we are left with regret, shame, and guilt, which eventually affects our self-concept. Now, when we speak about regret, we're talking about that feeling of sadness, that sorrow, and that is something we will experience when we haven't made it right and people pass. And the guilt is inevitable because guilt is that moral emotion we feel when we feel that we haven't lived up to our own personal standard of conduct. And no matter which way we put it, we will feel that guilt. And we will feel shame, which is that feeling that we will experience because of the awareness of our guilt. And as Brené Brown tells us in her book, Daring Greatly, shame derives its power from being unspoken. And let's face it, once we're feeling guilty about something and we feel shame, we tend to not talk about it. So what we end up with is regret, shame, and guilt. And once we have these powerful emotions, then what ends up happening is that they affect our self-concept. And as we know, our self-concept is the relatively stable perceptions we have of ourselves. And once we begin to see ourselves in this light, then it becomes harder for us to love ourselves and to accept ourselves. And the truth really is that in itself is a good enough reason to not allow our loved ones to pass without making it right. So that is the second reason, and that's a good enough reason for us to decide to live each day like it's our loved ones' last days. Because in so doing, we will save ourselves the regret, the guilt, and the inevitable shame. Apart from the fragility and uncertainty of life, and in addition to the regret, shame, and guilt that we will feel, the next reason that we need to live each day like it's our loved one's last is simply because it actually gives us a chance to grow in our cognitive complexity. Now, cognitive complexity is the ability to construct a variety of frameworks around an issue. Now, let's say you had a falling out with a friend or a loved one, or in my case, where I wanted to speak to my father, and my focus was just on speaking to my father. Now, if I had been exercising cognitive complexity, I would have been able to see this issue from my mother's perspective. Because when we exercise cognitive complexity, we can look at an issue from our point of view, we can look at it from another person's point of view, and we're able to have empathy. So I really wasn't being empathetic to my mother when I said, "Oh, I need to talk to Dad. I can talk to you another time." It's still something I do regret. It's something that I couldn't forgive myself for 14 years. But when I did this story, I think I got a chance to really finally heal, because I got a chance to finally talk about it. And like Brené Brown says, it's the shame that keeps us quiet. But when we're able to talk about it, it helps. But there's no need for us to wait for someone to die to feel the shame and then get over the shame. What we need to do is realize that a good enough reason to live each day like it's our loved one's last day is simply to grow in our ability to see life from other people's perspective, to exercise empathy, and in so doing, to widen our ability to exercise cognitive complexity. So in conclusion, I'd like to encourage you to live each day as if it is your loved one's last day. Because life is so fragile. Life is uncertain. And when we don't live each day like it's their last one and they die before we get a chance to make it right, we're left with so much shame, so much regret, so much guilt, and we don't get a chance to develop our cognitive complexity. Those are good enough reasons as far as I'm concerned. My father used to always say, life is fragile, handle with care. I learned the truth of those words when my mom died. And so in closing, remember, live each day like it's your loved one's last day, because you never know. It just might be their very last day.